Hello and welcome to Real Menopause Talk. My guest today is Claire Lowson. Claire's passion is rebranding age as the coming of age. So brands, listen up. This is what women want. We're powerful, strong, discerning. We need purposeful engagement with the older woman. We want to see what we need becoming available, whether that is effective hand cream or proper legislation. In this episode, we discuss women's sense of identity at various points of our life, optimizing the workplace, coming into motherhood in your 40s, and role models through the ages. Claire, hi, how are you?
I'm very well.
So lovely to meet you, and
you.
Thanks for getting in touch. First of all, would you be happy to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you. So I've got 2 young children. So I've had children in my 40s, which is kind of relevant maybe to some of this conversation. Mm-hmm. And we relocated to Yorkshire just before I had my second child. And we've ended up staying here longer than planned because of COVID, really. We got here in kind of the beginning of 2019 and then, we've just ended up staying. So I'm here in Yorkshire. I'm a brand strategist and a coach. And historically, I've always done both. So I've always worked with brands from a kind of, the brand strategy perspective, but I've often worked within the people. So working with the business and with the people. And I've coached privately for years, but often ended up coaching women. I've coached men and women within businesses both, but often privately coached women who are, and that's always been about them really maximizing where they're at in life, where they want to be, usually connected to work. And that's all dovetailed into this area now where I'm working, which is largely to do with age and menopause. Alongside that, I'm working within propaganda in Leeds, and propaganda agency is all about rebranding age in a nutshell. In a big nutshell.
Rebranding age is, just the idea of it alone warms my heart. It's just one of those things that is so intrinsic in the way that we've grown up, in a similar way, I think, possibly to diet culture. I saw something on Instagram yesterday with just excerpts from films and TV programs about don't eat this, do eat that. Oh no, you need to be thinner, you need to lose, all that kind of thing. And I feel it's very similar with age. I feel that from the diet perspective, we're building a stronger, healthier attitude, but the age still needs to be addressed. Before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about your experience or where you are at in terms of perimenopause and menopause at the moment?
Okay, so I think I was blissfully unaware of perimenopause in my 40s, as I think most people are. Didn't really have much clue of that going on, except for the fact that I had IVF and I had children in my 40s. So I was having blood tests and there was some tiny print somewhere that said perimenopausal, but I wasn't really sure what that was. And I didn't ask too many questions. And then after I'd had my daughter, I was getting quite kind of irritable. And that was pointed out to me. And I thought, well, I'm not getting much sleep. Yes. I've got young children. So it's hard to know, isn't it? But ultimately, COVID kicked in and I asked to go onto HRT. I took advice from friends of mine who were already going down that path. I did my own research. Friends of mine had gone down that path and had also been seen at Chelsea or at various private clinics. So my GP wasn't that sure, wasn't seeing me face to face, wasn't testing anything anyway, because we were in the middle of COVID. I asked her for what my friends had, basically, but we talked about the dose that would work for me, a low dose to start. And so I started on HRT. And I'm really, really glad that I did, because since then I've kind of upped my dose a little bit. I felt the main thing for me was the irritability and the kind of just not feeling quite myself, a little bit not as buoyant and positive as I normally am. Bearing in mind we were in a pandemic as well, of course. Yes. It's always hard, isn't it? But also I wasn't getting hot flushes, but I would wake up in the night. I was getting woken in the night by small children and would feel just this kind of like, I would explain it more as this kind of heat inside my head, which made me feel really nauseous. So it was a really unpleasant sensation. And if I get that now, I know that's a sign that I'm kind of wiped out and need to think about how I'm managing things in general, because I don't want to keep upping the HRT. You can't go on forever. But it's a sign that I'm not kind of managing things quite as well as I might. In addition to that, I'm super healthy in terms of my general diet. I'm not getting enough sleep. I think that's fair to say. Something has to give for me. It's sleep, which is wrong, I know. But I've always been really interested in health and well-being. So I completely agree with all the advocating for lifestyle as well. In my case, I would say I found I wanted more as well. I was addressing everything you can do with lifestyle. So yeah, that's my story. And I'm fascinated about all the arguments around HRT, no HRT, and the issues for women who can't take HRT. I've got a good friend just now who's been diagnosed with breast cancer in her early 40s, who will be pushed into a kind of early menopause by the treatment and has been told she won't be able to access HRT. But then there's really so little other information being given to her. And that's where I feel like this whole area has to grow and change so that it's recognized by everybody that in itself, that's a tiny one subject area, but is massive. Somebody who's now got to deal with cancer, the kind of threat to life of that, the threat to health of that, and the issues of the chemotherapy, hair loss, all of the things that go around that emotionally and physically. And then it's almost like an aside, the menopause bit, whereas for those of us who've been through it, we kind of know what's coming, and we would want that person to be massively prepared for that as well.
Of course. And I feel the media are focusing on HRT more than menopause itself, perhaps. And there are natural alternatives and there are natural solutions.
I think the problem is the overload, isn't it? Because people in that position are dealing with so much. First and foremost is the cancer. But hopefully at the right point in time when they've got the headspace for it, it's good to make sure that stuff is there. But that's the challenge, isn't it?
It is, as with even a normal perimenopause, particularly if you've got young children and a household and a job and life itself. It's big at this stage of life. Straight onto it then. Menopause is not part of old age. And the way you put it, menopause isn't the start of old age, it's the coming of age. I just love that. I think it's the most eloquent way I have heard expressed the fact that this isn't old lady disease. This is just part of the natural process of life. And women thrive, hopefully through it, but certainly after it. We've got so much to offer. So talk to us about the coming of age.
The obvious starting point is that anybody of age, men and women, has experience. And experience in life can't be cheated. It can't be bought. You earn it, you live it, you get it when you get to a certain place. So experience is the massive gain of older age. And we know what that brings. It brings resilience, it brings self-knowledge, it brings self-awareness, it brings groundedness, peace of mind. I mean, most decades measure more life satisfaction than the one previous. So we know that evidentially people feel better as they grow older, stronger, more powerful. Power is not associated with age. And that's, for me, one of the words that I keep coming back to in all our work. I think older age has to be seen as powerful. And I'm not talking, of course, just about kind of muscle and your physical power. We know that your physicality is going to change as you age, but the two things are entirely separate. Power that comes from knowledge and experience is huge. And societies that really revere age, where every year you become more and more valuable to that society and are sought out for playing a valuable role in that society, those societies live to be much, much longer and healthier and look actually younger at older age. It's not just about women. For me, rebranding age is about all genders, and it's about really affecting the whole kind of social structure and fabric. We have an aging population. I've been interested in rebranding age since I was really young. It's never ever made sense to me that women in particular have this kind of glass ceiling. We talk about the glass ceiling at work. What about the glass ceiling in life? And where is it? Is it around 25? I mean, I used to be a teacher when I first left university, and the girls really want to look old. They all in their teens want to look older than they are. And they come in on non-uniform days and they're looking, scarily kind of sexualized and mature when they're not, and they're not able to cope with that emotionally. They look grown up. And then by the time so that's when they're 13, 14. By the time they're 26, I employed a woman of 26 who was having Botox and liposuction.
Yep.
So when is the golden time? There isn't one really. So I've always felt that all of life should be one upward trajectory where the best is always still to come. And I think to an extent that works for men. A man over 50 would still listen to this and think we have our challenges, and they do. And that's really worth acknowledging and getting into on a different scenario. But I think for all of society, always to have role models ahead is really vital. And for women, they're just not there. So at a certain point, where do you look to for inspiration or aspiration, or even just to raise the bar? I really love it now that there are publications, media outlets, stories all about older age and women at older age. And those women are looking good as well as doing good. So I don't think we ever want the focus to be only on the veneer, because it is about substance, not, looks. It's also, we have to stay healthy longer. And I want to look at somebody like Davina McCall and think, wow, that's really achievable in your 50s, and will be what she's doing in her 60s and so on. And the other people that are doing it, I think it's really important to know what one can be, as opposed to some old, outdated notion of health at 60, 70, 80, because it is outdated. And we all know that if you look at photographs now, I think if you look at photographs of your grandparents at 40, they look like old people. That's not how people look at 40 now. And also the lives, like, as you said, perimenopause hits women when they've got young children, often, certainly children in school. It is at the time of your life when you're most impactful, you're most multitasking, you're most responsible for so many, many things. And that doesn't go away. I think menopause, branding, people that are trying to do good around this, you show women kind of passive. They're empty nesters, or they're lolling on a sofa looking at a nice book or magazine, or maybe at best they're in a spa. But actually these women are running boardrooms and buying all of their kind of household purchases, and they have power, they have spending power, and they have influence, and yet brands are just not seeing that at all. So that's where I think it all becomes really interesting. I can't even remember what your first question was now.
Neither can I, so don't worry. It is interesting about the way brands position us, Generation X. A lot of the photographs, the images are of rather sad looking, drab women. There's no colour in the photographs even, never mind in their faces. They don't look like they're experiencing any joy in their lives whatsoever. And this is, like you just said, even brands that are targeting us. How do we readdress this and show that we are vibrant and full of life? And again, like you said, we have more spending power, more confidence. We know what we want. How do we show the outside world, particularly brands, that they need to change the outside image of the woman 40 plus?
There's a commercial opportunity there for brands. And I know that there's a pushback against rebranding menopause, seeing menopause as a brand opportunity, because there's the shouts of kind of exploitation. I completely disagree with that. I think that these women, as you've said, we have spending power, we're discerning. We also know we need more choice. Women it's not just menopause, it could be age. I know that you spoke to Nicola from Nachido. We're not just talking about women and menopause, we're talking about age for everyone. It isn't well serviced. And where, as you say, when it is acknowledged, it's in a really negative way, or it's in slightly, victim, poor you're in decline way. And that's not helpful to anyone. Women and men, but women in particular, with all the kind of issues going on at this age, they want products, they want choice. And there's still a lot more available in the States than here. So it's frustrating. I find it's the one area where, rather than being hit by a squillion ads and saying something that I think, oh, that looks great. Oh, that looks great. You're buying things that you don't really want and need because you're being hit by ads all the time. Then where you are looking for something particular, a product for dry skin or itchiness or whatever it might be, there just isn't that much there. And I hear about things on podcasts that are available in the States, and it's infinitely frustrating not that we can't get them. We don't have the choice that we should have, and we do have in all other areas. Julian Kinniston at Propaganda, who I work with, his analogy, which I think is great, is that when you want a new coat for the school run, this time of year, weather's changing, you go and buy a coat that you could climb Everest in. all the tech is there. It's sold on that. It does this, it does that. It's waterproof. It can keep you warm at whatever, -50 temperatures, all of this stuff. And you buy it for going to take your kids to school. Where is that around this area? There's nothing there. So it's a commercial opportunity for brands. They need to see that. They also need to see the kind of, I don't know if glamour is the right word, because it's not about looks. This is a glamorous audience because we are a powerful audience. We're powerful, we're strong, we're discerning. As many people of this sector as any other do look good, are healthy, and therefore are a glamorous face of that as well. Just like you kind of advertise all lifestyle products by showing vibrant, healthy people. That's the same for here. Once brands realize that this is also a sexy, glamorous, aspirational place to play in, they'll want to play in it, and they'll be mad not to. And another analogy that we use is the vegan marketplace. So obviously, veganism was rather kind of niche not that long ago, 5-10 years ago. It was very much the domain of the kind of yogis and hippies. And then it kind of became a massive debate in terms of health and the economy. I mean, I just read the other day that Holland are trying, or some city, I think it was one city in Holland, are trying to ban meat adverts because their argument is that the production of meat is so bad for the environment. Why would we advertise it? That kind of purposeful engagement has changed the vegan market into the plant-based market that we have today, that has affected the economy and opened up all kinds of other debate. And that's where we have to get to with this, because the population's aging. Women have power at age more than ever before. This generation coming through menopause now has always worked. Always. These are people that the workforce can't afford to lose. Yeah. And that's going to be increasingly the case over the next decades when the majority of the population at work is older. Brands need to get on it now. And those that are really pioneering and leading the way. I think there'll be a tipping point, and I hope that's soon, where it is recognized that this is the next big untapped market for purposeful growth.
I do feel there is a gender divide. Skincare for women has existed since time immemorial, or certainly for as long as I can remember. I also remember skincare for men in the 90s being a little bit niche, and now it is just part of self-care for men. It's really not a thing. It's just what they do. But still with women, when you are looking at an older woman in a magazine, say, usually somebody famous. Lauren Hutton is 78. Jane Fonda, I believe, might even be 80. They look phenomenal. Natalie Portman is just 41 and still at 41 being touted as older. When they put articles in the magazines about these fabulous, famous, very successful, great-looking women, it's often in spite of their age or, oh, wow, look at what they're doing, even though they're getting older. Whereas with the men, there may be some reference to fatherhood or their career, but it's very, very rarely, oh, look how they're aging. Again, is there something being done that we don't know about behind the scenes to bring us to parity?
I think there should be. I don't know that there is. I think there should be. This is the early surge in this area. And I guess that's the inevitability of those articles, because women of that age haven't been profiled at all before. True. Then when they are profiled, that seems to be the first point of context. But I think with time that will shift. And it's really important that we see that as a good, that, that particular publications are really featuring these kind of articles. I think gradually, once that becomes more normal, they will be able to reach out and focus on more. And I think it's really fascinating then how menopause dovetails with that. And I think, we've talked about experience and resilience and all the things that everyone gets with age. I think for me, with menopause, the female body is astonishing, and we all the time feel like we have to play on a level playing field with men. And actually, I'm really interested in recognizing the difference of femaleness, the female body, and how that can be leveraged at all ages. So, for example, when we have our yearly planner that you might start on January the 1st, for me, women should be working around their cycle. Is it right that girls sit exams at a point of their cycle when we know they're not going to do as well as if they were sitting it on another part of their cycle? We know that there are parts of the cycle every month where you're highly creative and energetic and outward focused and clear thinking, and at other parts of the month where you need to kind of reflect and regroup and be a little bit more on your own, whatever that might be. So that's always there, and we just have to pretend that it isn't and crack on in the workplace and do our meetings and interviews and exams whenever they come up. That's an interesting area of debate. But then equally, we have other points of transformation in female life that are seen as positive. So when somebody's pregnant, it's all celebration, congratulations, well done. Oh, what change is coming? Oh, you're going to be a great mom. You're going to really embrace this. It's massive and it's really hard. And women navigate it. And again, often that's all slightly under the carpet too, about the challenges to identity for women then. But we generally as society see it as a positive. Menopause is another amazing transformation. And yes, I've said all the things that come with age, experience, resilience, all of those things. Navigating yet another change is part of that kind of capacity for resilience. There's other really interesting reading that shows that the changes to the female brain at that point are also really empowering. So I don't know if you've read The Upgrade.
Yes, I've interviewed Lowson Brizendine.
So she talks a lot about, the capacity to actually focus better, and that the kind of flat line that you get in your hormones at that point allows you to focus for longer and in a different way than you have before. And the desire to nurture the world and to multitask slightly starts to, shift in favor of that real focus. So I think it's an extraordinary thing. If you combine all of that to think what the female body has, it is incredible and amazing. And we shouldn't be, this is a massively political argument, we shouldn't be necessarily trying to be always compared with men. We live in a patriarchal world. That's the way it's been. But actually to start to look now at how female adult life in its totality can be respected and acknowledged and leveraged would be massive. And I think it's that leveraging of it that everybody has to do, not just brands, but businesses, schools, really the education system. It's just loaded with opportunity that we're not taking.
That's such a good point. And yes, Dr. Lowson Brizendine, who wrote The Upgrade, is wonderful. Her knowledge, her book, she's terrific. I can't recommend that book highly enough. And it's so positive. The upgrade, the transition. There is nothing that says we're not getting even better as we continue through our life. Very interesting about the identity that you bring that up. When I had my first daughter, I completely lost my identity because I feel it was all tied up with my work before. And I took time off on maternity leave and I barely knew who I was. And then when I went back to work, I still didn't know who I was because dividing time. I was also a single mother, so I had that in my head. I had judgment right in front of me during my pregnancy and when I went back to work, right in front of me about that. And I was working and I was a mother and I didn't want to deny either part, but it was a very confusing time. Now, finally, and this is 16 years later, I feel like I'm regaining my identity. It might even be a new one, which is better. It is indeed an upgrade. But it's taken a long time to work out who on earth I am. I have spoken to other people who also say, yes, we're coming into our own. And this has got to be something that's celebrated. So I love the fact that actually, yes, we don't need comparison to men or anyone else. We can just be beings of our own, coming into our own. It's very exciting.
It is exciting. I think it's got to be, I was talking to somebody recently who's a workplace strategist, working with companies around, how you make a business work for neurodiversity, how you make an environment work for neurodiversity. And we touched on this and he was like, wow. And I was like, yeah, we're not diverse. We're half the population. And we have this potential that could be leveraged at certain points of the adult female cycle. You could get so much from these people in your team if they were able to educate themselves around that and move into this. Few are a brand looking into this. FEWE, they're all about all cycle health. And I think once women are equipped with that and we all start to recognize that as a society, again, it makes then something like pregnancy, maternity, menopause, all becomes part of that. And you can see the advantages. It's miraculous, isn't it, that we're doing it all through our adult life. When girls hit puberty and start menstruating, they're taking on all of this.
Yeah.
And at the moment, that's all still, it's rather functionally handled, but it actually could be massively flipped in the way that we look at it, so that it becomes, well, this is your makeup and this is now, you choose how to kind of work with that and what you can do with that. And I think the world would be a very different place, wouldn't it, if it was run like that? And I think in the future, I hope in the future it will be.
Age comes into expectation. So expectation of doing certain things at a certain time in your life, like having children. I've got a few friends having children in their 40s, which previously was a huge surprise. Even at 32, I was told I was a geriatric mother, which was maybe technically that's true, but it's not a nice label. How has it been for you having children? Again, just a tiny bit later than traditional expectations.
Well, I've had mine quite a lot later, I guess, but I think it's amazing. I mean, I've always, gosh, where do you start? Yeah, I think, the statistics now, more women are having babies over 40 than teenagers are. That has to be a positive. If you look at this kind of sliding scale of life, menopause used to come relatively end of life. It doesn't now. We're living longer and menopause has got younger, probably due to the unhealthiness of our environment and diet. So menopause is now coming in the middle. It used to be more towards the end. Women are blurring all those boundaries because women are having babies in before and just before and in perimenopause if they're having them in their 40s. There's also a statistic, I'd have to check where this comes from, but that women who have a child over 40 are 60% more likely to live to be 100. 60%.
Goodness.
That's absolutely huge. So that it can't be a physical thing, because if you didn't age until you'd had children, then the people who never have children would live longer and would live the longest. So it's not that. But obviously there is an emotional element to that. You're effectively living your life with a completely different mindset. You're doing what other people were doing in their 30s or maybe even 20s, but I think typically now it's 30s, isn't it, when the bulk of people have children. So you're doing what other people are doing in their 30s, but you're doing it in your 40s or 50s. So it naturally somehow, I guess, resets the brain. But this is the point. If that happens to people who have their children later, then that can happen if society rethinks and repositions age and our expectations of age. And that's where I think it is really vital that we have role models that look good and are doing good things. The 4-minute mile, when the guy ran the first 4-minute mile, it had never been done before. And oh, how amazing. We thought that never could be done. Now it's regularly done because the bar was set, the bar was raised and it was set. And then other people, met that. And that's how this will be. When we see that actually at 70 and at 80, at 90, you can be active and working if you want to work, or certainly contributing, and you can be living a really fit and healthy life, then that will become the norm. And yesterday on a fantastic photo shoot for Gen M, actually, and the photographer's assistant must have been, I don't even know how old she was, early 20s. And we had images there, mood boards and shots of the kind of thing we were looking for. And she was like, I so want to be that. I want to be that. And I was like, of course you do. But that's brilliant, because for girls to have decades of aspiration, as opposed to just Botox, the fillers, all of that stuff, told that that's where it's at and it stops and you've got to kind of hanker after that for years, there's nothing there for them. Yeah, so when she said that, I totally get it. I'm like, yeah, that's why I've been interested in rebranding age since I was in my 20s.
I can't wait to get to 50 because of everything that's happening. It's really, really exciting. And I never thought I'd say that at 30. Claire, have you got any parting pearls of wisdom?
Brands, wake up to this and see this as a really fabulous, glamorous, powerful, exciting opportunity, and a propaganda agency with a focus on the age. That's what we're doing. We want to help brands navigate this shift and make this worthwhile for everyone. It's of social benefit. Let's rebrand age and make it the place to be.
You can find Claire at the Propaganda Agency and on Instagram at ClaireLowson_supermenopause. Remember to follow us on the podcast app of your choice, and please do leave a review, as it helps to signpost exactly where to find us. Thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.